Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Millie and I am about to hit my 8-month recovery milestone from anorexia. And I asked on Twitter and Instagram yesterday if anybody had any kind of topics or questions that they wanted me to talk about. So I made some notes, and you can see throughout, I think, the, what you would call it, bar at the bottom that I've kind of separated it. So if there's a particular topic that you're struggling with or you're interested in, you can kind of skip to that section. I guess overall, there just has been so many changes, especially since, I think, the start of the new year, especially since 2022. I think that's when I've really seen the most changes in myself. Hopefully you'll find my reflections now that I'm nearing 8 months really helpful if you're a little bit earlier on in recovery. It's become a lot easier to go into meal times and eat. It's been easier to eat, full stop. I did have to increase the amount I was eating quite slowly. I was at risk of refeeding syndrome, but I think I definitely dragged that process out longer than I needed to. Once you're past that refeeding risk, dragging it out just drags out the pain and misery. After Christmas, I maxed out my outpatient meal plan, like their maximum meal plan, and from there I've just stopped calorie counting the last month, which is incredible. I honestly didn't think I'd ever be able to stop calorie counting, and there are days for sure, pretty much every day, when the mental calculator's going and I really feel the urge to find out this number, and there have been a few days where I've given in and tried to kind of calculate it. For the most part, I'm not. So that's amazing, and it shows that it's really possible, because I genuinely thought I never would be able to stop. If you're struggling with calorie counting, I completely hear you. I made a post recently on Instagram and on my second TikTok with my tips on how I was able to stop calorie counting, and I'll leave all my social media down in the description below if you wanted to follow me on anything else. I'm constantly active, I'm posting everywhere. I don't shut up. In terms of fear foods, I've definitely faced a lot. My biggest fear was definitely having pie, and that was only because you have the kind of, it's traditional to have the pie, the chips and the veg, and I don't know why, but that just felt so overwhelming to me. Drinks have always been my biggest challenge, and liquid calories are still something that I really struggle with, but absolutely try and challenge. So having hot chocolate, having protein shakes, milkshakes, putting milk in my tea. I'm still a fan of black coffees. That isn't related to eating disorders. I just stopped putting milk in my coffee, and now I find that I actually just don't like the taste of milk in my coffee anymore. But having milk in my tea, for example, I'm trying to incorporate that again, but I'd say that's still my biggest challenge. In terms of hunger cues, these have just been all over the place. It's a roller coaster. So on some days, I'm like really not hungry, like at all. And of course, you still have to eat on those days. But on other days, my hunger is just through the roof. And I don't know if I've struggled with extreme hunger in the same way that I've seen other creators. I think I've had extreme mental hunger, and it's the mental hunger cues that I'm still finding quite challenging, but I'm definitely trying. And I remind myself, and I know this from when I have honoured mental hunger, that when I do give in and listen to those cravings, it goes away. So whilst I don't really have too much to say on the physical extreme hunger side, it's really that mental side that's been challenging for me, and I'm really hoping to do a more in-depth post about this soon. Another difficult one that I've had now that I think I've stopped planning my food and trying to be a bit more flexible with my food choices is that now I don't know what I want, and I get stuck in what I'm calling, and I think is the right word, choice paralysis. And a couple of other people commented on this as well, not knowing what to have for lunch or dinner, for example. And there are a few ways around this. So sometimes if I'm trying to decide between two things, like yesterday I went to get a milkshake with my sister and I couldn't decide whether I wanted this flavour or that flavour, and I just said, can you choose for me? I can't choose. And she chose, and I got that one. And if you saw my last video, I got my friends to choose all my food for me for a day, which took away some of that choice paralysis, which was nice, but it's like slapping a plaster on. It's not really fixing the issue. What I found helpful is just to grab the first thing. Whatever that first thought was before you got yourself into that choice paralysis spiral, have that. My mind might go, okay, you really want X for lunch, and then it will start to go, but you could have this, 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 and this, and this. And a lot of the time, those other things is the eating disorder being really sneaky and trying to find like a safer option. And if you have that first thing, okay, you grab that first thing and you have it. And if you want the other thing or the other 5 things, have them as well. There is no limits, there is no restriction. Weight gain is something I compensated for this for so long. The reality is you cannot recover from a restrictive eating disorder and not weight restore. You're not the exception, you have to face it. And it's hard, Don't get me wrong, it's bloody probably one of the hardest parts is accepting that weight gain. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I've reached full acceptance, but we're working on it. It's a process. Some days I feel on top of the world and I love the weight gain and I love looking healthier. And other days I can barely stand to look down at my own body. But what I know now is that those bad moments do pass. And actually, as I've progressed, they've become fewer and far between, which is literally the exact opposite of what your eating disorder will have you think. Science actually shows that your body image will improve as you near your set point weight. Over the last month, with the more rapid weight gain, as I've been honouring all mental physical hunger, stopping calorie counting, my body image has improved dramatically. I don't hate how I look anymore. But if you told me 8 months ago that I'll be XYZ amount heavier and like how I look, I'd have laughed at you. Physically, there is, of course, still a long way to go. I'm no longer at a weight where I'm at risk of involuntary admission, but I'm not yet at a healthy BMI, let alone weight restored. So it's an uphill battle, but it's feeling easier every day. Our next topic, an interesting one, and I don't think everybody with restrictive eating disorder struggles with compulsive exercise. I was a runner. If you didn't know, I ran my first 5k about a year ago and ran a 10k a few weeks later. Do not do that. Please do not do that. If you are malnourished, and again, I've said this before, but you don't have to be underweight to be malnourished. You shouldn't be exercising. Full stop. You're not the exception. If you're malnourished, you shouldn't be exercising. Those first few days and weeks I stopped running, I felt hopeless. I felt I didn't deserve my food. It was a nightmare. But even months ago, like within a month of recovery, I didn't feel the same way. I miss running still, but I know it's something that I can work back towards with a healthy mindset. Somewhere where I have made some changes is thinking about OCD. Now, I'm not diagnosed with OCD, but I notice, and lots of studies notice, there is a comorbidity that's quite common between anorexia and OCD. And I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago when I spoke about my morning routine, and what I found helpful was to know that I wasn't the only person who was experiencing these obsessions and compulsions out of nowhere. And it was really helpful to know that a lot of the time they're comorbid, and actually as you recover from the eating disorder, those symptoms of OCD start to reduce. One thing I noticed was that I was quite ritualistic. There was a lot of behaviours around how I'd eat food, how I'd prepare food. Those have all started to reduce just naturally throughout recovery, I found. This is a really random one. A lot of people feel the urge to constantly be peeing, that's right, peeing, before they eat. But I know it's something a lot of people feel embarrassed or didn't relate to their eating disorder. It feels quite random, but it is related because we want the eating environment to be perfect, right? Because when we were restricting, those situations where we would sit down to eat might have been quite few and far between. So we wanted that when we kind of sit and eat, we wanted it to be perfect. But the reality is now, you're not eating inconsistently. So it doesn't matter if things are a little bit off. It doesn't matter if you are hungry and you have to eat a snack on the go. It doesn't matter if you have to eat in the car in front of other people when people are watching, when you kind of need a wee but there's no toilet nearby. Breaking these behaviours still makes me incredibly anxious, but it's something I'm doing, and it's something you should be doing too. This is a hefty one. Firstly, strength. I have a lot more strength and energy in my body. I'm no longer feeling faint. I'm no longer feeling dizzy. I'm no longer having heart palpitations that make me feel like I'm going to die. It's these little things that I no longer take for granted. Things like having strength in my arm to hold a full kettle and pour a cup of coffee. Having strength in my arms to actually wash my hair properly in the shower. These are little changes that have added up and made my quality of life drastically better. There are some things that are a bit more negative. I, for example, have had IBS for the longest time, and right now it is probably the worst it's ever been. I'm bloated, it's painful, it's a nightmare. You still have to eat. That's the only way it's gonna get better, is just to eat through it and trust the process. I know it sucks to eat when you're in pain, so eat food that is easily digestible, things that are high in fat and sugar, that maybe your eating disorder is screaming at you that you shouldn't be eating. Double whammy of reasons here why you should be eating those foods. Firstly, if it's a fear food, facing that fear food. Secondly, it's easier for the body to digest, so it will lead to less digestive discomfort. Two things in one, guys. I've done a post on things that have helped with bloating, but I suppose my key things are hot water bottle and peppermint tea. Another really random symptom that I've experienced that you might have too but have been too embarrassed to discuss, well, I have no sense of shame, so night sweats. Let's talk about night sweats. There have been, and there still are, most nights actually, I wake up drenched in sweat. How pleasant is that? Why is it that we are cold all of the time, except from when we're bloody asleep? Well, actually, the science shows that the night sweats are a sign that your metabolism is picking up again. So it's actually a good thing, and it should pass as your metabolism starts to normalize again. And any other physical symptoms, because there likely are other random things that pop up here and there that I'm wondering, hang on a minute, is that normal? I discuss them with my medical team. So I'd really encourage you, if you're having any unusual symptoms or experiences, but especially if you're feeling faint, dizzy, confused, you're having heart palpitations, or you're regularly passing out or collapsing, speak with a doctor. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric disorder. There were so many points when my body kept me going when I really don't think it should have, and I regret not seeking medical advice sooner. I thought I was the exception. I thought, oh, I know people pass away from anorexia, but it's not going to happen to me. You're not any different or special. So please, if you're having medical symptoms like that, get support and get advice. You really do deserve it. God, recovery is a roller coaster of emotions, feeling completely motivated, on top of the world, to absolutely hating your existence and wanting to stop everything and return to your eating disorder. And you'll make that flip-flop countless times a day, countless times a week. Your emotions start to return when you're fueling your body enough to actually experience them, and that means you'll be feeling heightened states of both good and bad emotions, or bad negative emotions. And that's why it can feel like such a roller coaster. The highs will feel very high and the lows will feel very low, and it may not feel as if you're in the middle at any point. A lot of the things that you might have been numbing out with your eating disorder will start to return. And I hope, again, one day I can reflect on this and say, I've learned some coping techniques, but right now I just don't have any. But mentally, at least, I'm not constantly thinking of food. Food is just another part of my day. It isn't the whole day. It's not my whole experience. It isn't my whole life anymore. And again, that's just something that's come with committing to recovery over time. I'm doing things that I never thought I would ever be able to do again. And That's incredible. I'm amazed. Socially, I'm more present. I'm able to engage in conversations. I'm able to talk about things that aren't just food. And I'm really sorry to all of my friends for all of the food conversations we've had this last year. Thank you for sticking around through everything. Personally, I found hobbies again. I found interests again. I'm kind of returning to Millie, who Millie is when she doesn't have an eating disorder. I am so proud of the things that I've achieved. I'm so proud that just this weekend I stayed in a hotel all on my own. I would have previously been just too socially anxious to spend a day eating in cafes by myself and shopping and going into the changing rooms, checking in and out of a hotel, and I did it. I'm so proud. And there was a moment in the changing room this weekend where I cried with happiness at what I'd achieved, how I actually liked how I looked in the clothes. I bought this fleece actually. There are still times when I feel inflexible, I feel anxious, I still struggle to make plans on the go, but I know that I'm making progress. 8 months on, and I can reflect back and say that without a shadow of a doubt, it has been and will be worth everything. My mindset now is to keep moving forward and to challenge myself every single day to do something that makes me feel uncomfortable, but to enjoy the process of learning to be kind to my body. I want to say thank you to my friends and my partner for supporting me. I want to say thank you to all of you guys for believing in me and keeping me motivated and keeping me accountable to my recovery journey as well. I'm really hoping that I can provide for you guys a sense of support within the community, a safe space, somewhere where you can go, where you know you won't feel judged. Thank you so much for listening to me basically ramble about my journey. I hope that something here was helpful, even if it's just a takeaway that things can and will get better. So as always, all of my love, a typical YouTuber, whatever, like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.